I was still wearing black when the lawyer told me the truth. Someone forged my name while I was burying my husband. And the person who helped me was sitting right outside that door. This story is inspired by real-life submissions. Names and identifying details have been changed. I was standing at my husband's funeral when my sister-in-law put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't worry about the paperwork. I'll handle everything." I should have known right then. But grief does something to you. It makes you small. It makes you grateful for anyone who steps forward when you can barely stand. Robert had been gone 3 days. 3 days since the hospital called. 3 days since I watched them turn off the machines. And now I was at Miller & Son's funeral home in our small Ohio town, shaking hands with people whose names I couldn't remember, trying to figure out how to keep breathing. Consuelo, Robert's sister, she moved through that room like she owned it. Efficient, organized. Everything I wasn't in that moment. "Pilar, honey, where did you put the death certificates?" she asked, her voice syrupy sweet. I pointed to the folder on the table near the guest book. She picked it up, flipped through it, then tucked it under her arm like it was hers. "I'll make copies," she said. "You shouldn't have to think about any of this right now." People nodded. They smiled at her. One of Robert's cousins even said, "Thank God someone's looking after her. Looking after me, like I was a child. Like I hadn't been married to Robert for 37 years. Like I hadn't handled our bills, our taxes, our lives while he worked 60-hour weeks building his business." But I didn't say anything. I just nodded. I thanked her. That's what you do when you're 68 and your husband just died and everyone's looking at you like you might shatter. Consuelo walked over to the funeral director, Mr. Miller, a man I'd known since he was in high school with my son. She spoke to him in a low voice, and he handed her another envelope. A thick one. Official looking? Why did she need that? I watched her write something down in a small notebook. She glanced at me, caught me looking, and smiled that smile. The one that said, "I'm doing you a favor." "Don't worry," she called across the room. "I'm just keeping track of everything so you don't have to." My hands were shaking. I folded them in my lap and looked down at my black dress. The one Robert always said made me look elegant. I couldn't feel elegant. I could barely feel anything except this heavy, suffocating weight pressing down on my chest. The service ended. People left. Consuelo stayed. She asked Mr. Miller for extra copies of something. I heard her say the word beneficiary. I heard her mention an attorney's name, someone I didn't recognize. Why would she need an attorney? Robert's will was simple. We'd gone over it together years ago. Hadn't we? I drove home alone that night. Consuelo had offered to come with me, but I'd said no. I needed space. I needed silence. When I walked into the house, everything felt wrong. The hall closet was open. I always kept it closed. The desk drawer in Robert's office, our office, was pulled out, papers sticking up at odd angles. I walked over slowly, my heart starting to race in a way that had nothing to do with grief. The mortgage file was on top. I hadn't touched that in weeks. Underneath it was a manila envelope with a law firm's name stamped across the top. Hendricks Associates. I didn't recognize it. I opened it carefully. It was empty. My stomach dropped. I pulled open the bottom drawer. More files. But they were out of order. The bank statements weren't where I always kept them. The folder labeled insurance was missing 2 documents I knew had been there. Had I moved them? In the chaos of the hospital. The funeral arrangements. Had I know? I knew where I kept things. I'd always known. The house was too quiet. I stood there in the middle of Robert's office, our office, holding an empty envelope with a law firm's name I'd never heard. And I felt something crack open inside me. Not grief, this time. Fear? What exactly had Consuelo taken? And why was she in such a hurry to organize my life when I hadn't asked her to? I sat down at the desk and stared at the envelope. The law firm's address was local, just 2 towns over. I picked up my phone, then put it down. It was almost 9 o'clock. Too late to call. But tomorrow? Tomorrow I'd find out what this was. I walked back through the house, checking the other rooms. Nothing else seemed disturbed. Just the office. Just Robert's papers. Just the things that mattered. I barely slept that night. And when I did, I dreamed of Consuelo's smile. That sweet, patient smile, as she tucked my life under her arm and walked away. The morning after the funeral, I woke up to find Consuelo in my kitchen. I hadn't heard her come in. I'd given her a key years ago, back when Robert and I used to travel and she'd water the plants. Back when I trusted her. "Morning, Pilar," she said, pouring coffee like this was her house. "I brought bagels. You need to eat." I stood in the doorway in my robe, disoriented. The clock on the microwave said 7:43 a.m. "How long have you been here?" I asked. "Oh, just a few minutes. I wanted to check on you." She set a plate on the table. "Sit, please." I sat because I didn't know what else to do. My head was still foggy from the sleeping pill I'd taken at 2 in the morning. She slid into the chair across from me, her smile warm and concerned. "I stopped by the bank yesterday afternoon," she said casually. "After the funeral, just to let them know about Robert. You know how these things are. They need to freeze accounts, update records. I didn't want you to worry about it." I blinked. "You went to the bank?" "Just the branch on Maple Street." "Your main one, right?" She bit into her bagel. "They were so sweet about everything. Said they'd take care of the paperwork." "I didn't ask you to do that." "I know, honey, but you've been so overwhelmed. I could see it at the funeral. You weren't tracking half of what people were saying. It's completely normal at your age, especially with the shock and everything. At my age, there it was again. That gentle knife. "Consuelo, I need to know exactly what you told them." She waved her hand. "Nothing you wouldn't have said yourself. That Robert passed, that things needed updating. They asked if you'd be coming in, and I said, probably not right away, that you were still processing." She leaned forward. "I'm just trying to help. You know that, right?" I wanted to believe her. Part of me did believe her. But something in her tone, in the way she was watching me, made my skin crawl. After she left insisting she'd be back later to check in, I went straight to Robert's office. The mortgage file was still on the desk where I'd left it the night before. I opened it slowly. Everything looked normal. Payment history, current balance, contact information for the lender. Then I saw it. Tucked in the back, a form I didn't recognize. It was a refinance application, partially filled out. Robert's name, my name. But the signature line at the bottom was blank. Had Robert been planning to refinance? He'd never mentioned it. I flipped through more papers. Bank statements from our joint checking account. The last 3 months were there, but the most recent one from 2 weeks ago was missing. I knew it had been in this file. I'd seen it when I was looking for the utility bill to set up autopay after Robert got sick. My chest tightened. I walked to the trash can under the desk. Empty, of course. Consuelo had probably tidied while I was still half asleep this morning. No, wait. I went to the larger trash bin in the garage. I pulled off the lid and started digging through coffee grounds and junk mail. And there, crumpled at the bottom, I found it. A piece of paper, torn in half. I smoothed it out on the workbench. It was a notary acknowledgement form. Official. With a seal. Dated 3 days ago, the day of the funeral. My name was typed at the top, but the signature wasn't mine. It was close. Whoever had signed it knew my handwriting well enough to mimic the way I looped my P and crossed my T, but it wasn't me. I hadn't signed anything that day. I'd been at the funeral home all morning, then at the service until 4 o'clock. I hadn't left. I hadn't signed anything. My hands started shaking. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the torn form before I could second-guess myself. Who had access to a notary? Who could have gotten this done while I was burying my husband? Consuelo's voice echoed in my head. I stopped by the bank yesterday afternoon, but that didn't make sense. This form was dated the day of the funeral, not the day after, unless she'd gone twice. I walked back into the house and called the bank, the Maple Street branch. A woman answered on the third ring. "Hi, this is Pilar Navarro. I need to ask about recent activity on my account." There was a pause. Typing. Then, "Mrs. Navarro, I'm showing that your account has a temporary hold. You'll need to come in with identification to access it." A hold? I didn't request a hold. It was flagged yesterday for verification purposes. Someone called on your behalf and mentioned concerns about confusion with recent transactions. Confusion. That word again. Who called? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "I'm not able to share that over the phone. But if you come in, we can review everything with you." I hung up. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Someone had called my bank. Someone had told them I was confused. Someone had used my name, my information, and now my account was locked. And I had a torn notary form in my hand with a signature that wasn't mine. The front door opened. I heard Consuelo's voice before I saw her. "Pilar? I forgot my sunglasses. Are you there you are?" She stopped in the doorway of the office. Her eyes went to the paper in my hand. Just for a second. Then she smiled. "What's that?" she asked. I folded it quickly. "Nothing. Just old paperwork." "You shouldn't be going through all this right now," she said softly. "You're going to confuse yourself. Let me help you organize it properly." She reached for the paper. I pulled it back. "I've got it," I said. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Suit yourself," she said. "But if you need me, I'm just a phone call away." She grabbed her sunglasses from the counter and left. And I stood there, holding a forged signature and wondering how far this had already gone. 4 days after the funeral, I got a letter from Social Security. Not the condolence letter they send when your spouse dies. I'd already gotten that one. This was different. The envelope was thin. Official. The return address made my stomach drop before I even opened it. Notice of beneficiary change request. I read it 3 times standing in my driveway, the mail scattered at my feet where I'd dropped it. According to the letter, a request had been submitted to update the survivor benefits linked to Robert's account. The change would redirect a portion of the monthly payment to a secondary account as per the attached authorization form. I flipped through the pages. There it was. My name, my signature. Except it wasn't my signature. It was too close. But I knew my own handwriting. I knew the way I dotted my I's, the way my capital N leaned slightly to the right. This signature was straighter, neater, practiced. The date at the bottom made my blood run cold. The day of Robert's funeral. I walked back into the house, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. I called the number printed at the top of the letter. The automated system put me on hold for 18 minutes. When a woman finally answered, her voice was tired and detached. "Social Security Administration. How can I help you?" I received a notice about a beneficiary change. I didn't request this. There was typing. A long pause. "Mrs. Navarro, I'm showing that the request was submitted in person at our downtown office. You signed the form with a witness present?" "I wasn't at your office. I was at my husband's funeral." More typing. Another pause. "Ma'am, it's not uncommon for people to feel disoriented after a loss. Sometimes we process paperwork and don't remember doing it. It happens a lot with what?" I asked, my voice sharp. "With older clients," she said gently. "Grief can affect memory. Are you sure you didn't?" "I'm sure." Silence on the other end. "Ma'am, if you're disputing the signature, you'll need to file a formal complaint. We can send you the form, but the process can take 6 to 8 weeks. In the meantime, the change will go into effect unless you provide documentation proving fraud." 6 to 8 weeks. Who submitted the form? I asked. Who was the witness? I can't release that information over the phone. But if you come into the office with identification, we can review the file together. I hung up. My hands were still shaking. I sat down at the kitchen table and spread the letter out in front of me. The signature stared back at me like an accusation. Someone had walked into a government office, signed my name, and redirected my money while I was burying my husband. And they'd done it in person, which meant there was a witness. Someone who saw them. Someone who could identify them. I grabbed my phone and called Consuelo. She answered on the first ring. Pilar, hi. How are you holding up? Did you go to the Social Security office? I asked. A pause. Too long. What? No. Why would I? Someone submitted paperwork in my name. On the day of the funeral. Pilar, honey. That doesn't make any sense. Are you sure you're reading it right? Sometimes those government forms are confusing, especially when I'm not confused. Another pause. Okay, she said slowly. Okay. But maybe you should bring it to me so I can take a look. You know how these things are. Sometimes it's just a clerical error. You don't want to make a big deal out of nothing. Nothing. My survivor benefits being redirected to a stranger's account was nothing. I'll handle it, I said. Pilar, don't stress yourself out over this. Let me come over. We can go through it together. I said, I'll handle it. I hung up before she could respond. My phone buzzed immediately. A text from Consuelo. You're not thinking clearly. Please don't do anything you'll regret. I stared at the message. The words felt like a threat wrapped in concern. I went back to Robert's office and pulled out the torn notary form I'd found in the trash. I set it next to the Social Security letter. Same handwriting, same signature style, same date, 2 forgeries, 2 different places, same day. Whoever did this had moved fast. They'd counted on me being too devastated, too overwhelmed, too old to notice. They'd counted on everyone believing I was confused. And it almost worked. I took pictures of everything. The letter, the form, the signature. I didn't know what I was going to do with them yet, but I knew I needed proof, real proof, the kind that couldn't be explained away with words like disoriented and grief-stricken. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Consuelo at the funeral, moving through the room with that folder tucked under her arm. I kept hearing her voice. Don't worry about the paperwork. She'd been so eager to help, so insistent. And she'd known about the bank. She'd known about the attorney whose name I didn't recognize. She'd been in my house, in my office, in my life, organizing things I hadn't asked her to organize. But I didn't have proof, not yet. Just suspicions and forged signatures and a growing list of things that didn't add up. I sat in the dark, in the house I'd shared with Robert for 37 years, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this go. I wasn't going to be the confused old widow everyone expected me to be. I was going to find out who signed my name. I was going to find out where my money was going. And I was going to stop it. But first, I needed to know what else had been changed. What else had been taken. What else had been done in my name while I was too broken to fight back. Tomorrow, I'd go to that Social Security office in person, and I'd get answers, even if I had to demand them. The bank branch on Maple Street looked exactly the way it had for 20 years. Same brick facade. Same glass doors. Same potted plants flanking the entrance. I'd been coming here since Robert and I opened our first joint account in 2003. The tellers knew me. The manager knew me. This was my bank. So why did I feel like a stranger walking through those doors? If this is hitting close to home, stay with me. And if you'd like more stories like this, subscribing really helps. The lobby was quiet. 2 tellers behind the counter, 1 customer at the ATM. I walked straight to the desk marked Customer Service, where a young woman with a nameplate reading Jessica looked up and smiled. How can I help you today? I need to speak with the manager. There's a hold on my account that I didn't authorize. Her smile tightened. Let me see if Mr. Patterson is available. Can I have your name? Pilar Navarro. She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, then gestured toward a small office in the corner. He'll see you now. Mr. Patterson stood when I entered. Mid-40s, thinning hair, the kind of overly polite demeanor that immediately put me on edge. "Mrs. Navarro, please sit. I understand there's some confusion about your account." Confusion. That word again. "There's no confusion," I said. "There's a hold I didn't request." He pulled up something on his computer, his expression carefully neutral. "Yes, I see the flag here. It was placed as a precautionary measure after we received a call expressing concern about unusual activity." "What call? From who?" He hesitated. The caller identified herself as family. She mentioned that you'd been under significant stress and that there might be transactions you wouldn't remember authorizing. She was worried about your well-being. My jaw clenched. "And you believed her?" "Ma'am, when someone calls with concerns about an account holder, especially an older account holder who's recently experienced a loss, we take those concerns seriously. It's our job to protect our customers." "Protect me from what? Accessing my own money?" He shifted uncomfortably. "The hold is temporary. We just need you to come in which you haven't, verify your identity. Then we can discuss next steps." "Who called?" I asked again. "I'm not at liberty to. It was my sister-in-law, wasn't it?" "Consuelo Rivera." His silence was answer enough. "What exactly did she tell you?" I pressed. He glanced at his screen. "That you'd been having difficulty tracking expenses. That you'd mentioned not remembering certain transactions. That she was concerned you might be vulnerable to." He paused. "To confusion, given your age and recent circumstances." There it was. Age and circumstances. The two excuses everyone kept using to treat me like I was incompetent. "Mr. Patterson, I'm 68 years old. My husband just died. I'm grieving. But I'm not confused. And I'm not vulnerable. Someone has been interfering with my accounts, and I need to know exactly what's been done." He nodded slowly. "I understand. Let me pull up the full account history." He typed for what felt like forever. Then his expression changed. Just slightly. A flicker of something surprise, concern. "Mrs. Navarro, there was an attempt to add a secondary authorized user to your checking account 5 days ago. The request was made by phone." My heart stopped. "By who?" "The system shows it came from a number registered to your household. The caller verified several pieces of your personal information: birth date, social security number, mother's maiden name." "I didn't make that call." "The call came from your home phone." "Ma'am?" "My home phone. The landline Robert insisted we keep even though I said we didn't need it anymore. The landline Consuelo had access to. Because she had a key. Because she'd been in my house." "What happened with the request?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "It was flagged for additional verification because the voice on the recording didn't quite match your previous interactions with us. We have voice prints on file for security purposes. So we put a hold on everything until you could come in personally." A recording. They had a recording. "I need to hear it," I said. "I'm not authorized to, Mr. Patterson. Someone used my phone, my information, and tried to steal access to my money. I need to hear that recording." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. 5 minutes later, a woman from the fraud department came in with a laptop. She played the recording. It was Consuelo's voice, trying to sound like mine. Older, softer, a little shaky. She'd even mimicked my slight accent. "I'd like to add my sister-in-law Consuelo Rivera as an authorized user on my checking account. She's been helping me with paperwork since my husband passed." The bank representative on the recording asked verification questions. Consuelo answered every single one correctly. She knew my mother's maiden name. She knew my birth date. She knew the last 4 digits of my social security number. How? The recording ended. The room was silent. "Can I get a copy of this?" I asked. The fraud specialist looked at Mr. Patterson. He nodded. "We'll email it to you within the hour," she said. "Mrs. Navarro, I need to ask, do you want to file a formal fraud claim?" Did I? That meant police. That meant family drama. That meant admitting to everyone that Robert's sister had tried to rob me while I was burying him. But what choice did I have? Yes, I said. I want to file a claim. They handed me forms. I signed them with my real signature, the one that leaned to the right, the one Consuelo had tried so hard to copy. When I finally left the bank an hour later, I sat in my car in the parking lot and stared at my phone. 3 missed calls from Consuelo. 1 voicemail. I pressed play. Pilar, I heard you went to the bank. You shouldn't be handling these things alone. You're going to make mistakes. Please, let me help you before you do something you can't undo. Before I do something I can't undo. Like what? Like proving she was a thief. I deleted the voicemail. Then I called the Social Security office and scheduled an appointment for the next morning. Then I called the number on that envelope from Hendricks Associates, the law firm I'd never heard of. A receptionist answered. Hendricks Associates. How may I direct your call? My name is Pilar Navarro. I need to speak with someone about my late husband's estate. Of course. Let me check if Mr. Hendricks is available. The line went silent. Then a man's voice came through, deep and steady. Mrs. Navarro, I'm glad you called. I've been trying to reach you. Mr. Hendricks' voice was calm, measured, the kind of voice that had delivered bad news before and knew how to do it gently. Trying to reach me? I asked. I never got any messages. A pause. I left 3 voicemails on your home line over the past week. The first one was 2 days after your husband's funeral. My home line. The same phone Consuelo had used to call the bank. I didn't get them, I said quietly. I see. Another pause. Mrs. Navarro, I was your husband's attorney. We handled his estate planning about 8 months ago. He asked me to contact you personally if anything happened to him. 8 months ago. Robert had updated his will 8 months ago and never told me. What did he change? I asked. I'd rather discuss this in person. Can you come to my office tomorrow? Say, 10 o'clock. Tell me now. He sighed. All right. Robert added a protection clause to his will. He was concerned about potential interference from family members after his death. He specifically named his sister as someone who should have no access to estate decisions or financial accounts. My breath caught. Robert knew. He'd known Consuelo would try something. There's more. Mr. Hendricks continued. 3 days ago, I received a call from someone claiming to be you. She said you wanted to waive the protection clause and make your sister-in-law co-executor of the estate. No, I didn't call you. I know. The woman on the phone said you were too grief-stricken to come in, but that you'd signed the necessary paperwork and it would be delivered to my office. When I explained that certain changes require in-person verification, she became insistent. She said I was taking advantage of an elderly widow who didn't understand legal jargon. Elderly widow. That phrase was becoming a weapon. When was this call? I asked. The day of your husband's funeral? Around 2 in the afternoon? While I was at the burial? While I was standing at Robert's grave with dirt under my fingernails from throwing the first handful of earth onto his casket? Consuelo had been on the phone, pretending to be me, trying to undo the one thing Robert had put in place to protect me. Mrs. Navarro, I need you to come in. There's been an attempt to file an amended beneficiary form with the insurance company. The signature looks legitimate at first glance, but something felt off, so I flagged it. If that form gets processed, a significant portion of Robert's life insurance payout gets redirected. Redirected where? To an account under Consuelo Rivera's name. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the kitchen counter. How much? I whispered. $340,000. I couldn't breathe. That was everything. The life insurance was supposed to cover the house, the medical bills, the rest of my life. The insurance company is waiting for verification, Mr. Hendricks said. But they'll only wait so long. You need to come in tomorrow and sign an affidavit confirming that signature isn't yours. I'll be there. Good. And Mrs. Navarro? Don't tell anyone you're coming. Not yet. He hung up. I stood in my kitchen, phone still pressed to my ear, and felt something shift inside me. The grief was still there, heavy and suffocating. But underneath it, something harder was forming. Rage. Robert had known. He'd seen this coming. He'd tried to protect me. And Consuelo had started dismantling those protections before his body was even cold. My phone buzzed. A text from Consuelo. Pilar, we need to talk. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm coming over. She was coming here. Now? I looked around the kitchen. The same kitchen where she'd sat this morning, drinking coffee, telling me I was confused. The same kitchen where she'd used my phone to try to steal my money. I wasn't ready to face her. Not yet. Not until I had everything documented, filed, protected. I grabbed my purse and keys and walked out the front door. I got in my car and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't be there when she arrived. I ended up at a diner on the edge of town, the kind of place Robert and I used to go on Sunday mornings. I ordered coffee I didn't drink and sat in a booth by the window, watching cars pass. My phone kept buzzing Consuelo Aber and Aber. Where are you? Your car's gone. Pilar, this is ridiculous. I'm worried about you. Call me back right now. I turned off my phone. The waitress came by. You okay, hun? I nodded. Just thinking. She patted my shoulder and walked away. I sat there until the sun started setting. Then I drove to a hotel near the Highway Hoa Holiday Inn Express where nobody knew me. I paid cash. I used a fake name. I told the clerk I was visiting family. In that anonymous room with its generic art and thin pillows, I finally let myself think clearly. Robert had protected me. He'd seen Consuelo for what she was. And she'd spent the last week trying to erase every safeguard he'd put in place. The forged signatures, the phone calls, the stolen paperwork, the voicemails that never reached me. She'd been methodical, calculated. She'd used my grief, my age, my isolation against me. But she'd made one mistake. She'd assumed I wouldn't fight back. Tomorrow I'd go to Mr. Hendricks' office. I'd sign that affidavit. I'd show him the torn notary form, the social security letter, the bank recording. I'd give him everything, and then I'd take back what was mine. I lay in that hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time since Robert died, I felt something other than grief. I felt ready. Mr. Hendricks' office was in a converted Victorian house on Oak Street. Burgundy shutters, brass nameplate, flower boxers in the windows. It looked like a place where important things were handled quietly. I arrived 15 minutes early, sat in my car, checked my phone. 17 missed calls from Consuelo. 6 voicemails I hadn't listened to. A dozen texts that got progressively angrier. The last one, sent at 6:47 this morning, said, "You're making a huge mistake. Call me before you do something stupid." I put my phone on silent and walked inside. The receptionist smiled. "Mrs. Navarro? Mr. Hendricks is expecting you." He met me at his office door. Late 50s, gray suit, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He shook my hand and gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know this isn't easy." He opened a file folder, thick, full of documents I'd never seen. "This is your husband's will," he said, sliding it across the desk. "The updated version from last March. Have you seen this before?" I shook my head. He turned to a page marked with a yellow tab. Section 7. The Protection Clause. I read it slowly. Legal language, dense and formal, but the meaning was clear. Consuelo Rivera was explicitly prohibited from having any authority over estate matters, financial accounts, or property decisions. Any attempt to circumvent this clause would result in immediate legal action and forfeiture of any inheritance. "Why didn't Robert tell me?" I asked. Mr. Hendricks leaned back in his chair. He said he didn't want to cause family tension while he was alive. He hoped he was wrong about his sister, but he wanted safeguards in place just in case. Just in case. Robert had known. Maybe not the specifics, but he'd known. "The insurance policy," I said. You mentioned a beneficiary form. He pulled out another document. Clipped to it was a photocopy of something with my name at the top. This was submitted to Midwest Life Insurance 4 days ago. It attempts to change the primary beneficiary from you to a joint designation you and Consuelo, with rights of survivorship. I stared at the signature line. It looked like mine. The same careful loops. The same slant. But it wasn't. When would this have been signed? I asked. According to the notary stamp, the morning of your husband's funeral, Navi y 47 antes de meio-dia. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo. I was here at 9:47. The timestamp on the image showed me standing outside the funeral home, Robert's cousin's arm around my shoulders. Mr. Hendricks examined it. Then he looked at the insurance form again. The notary listed is Margaret Chun, out of the downtown branch of First National Bank. Does that name mean anything to you? No. I've already contacted her office. She remembers the appointment because it was early and the woman seemed rushed. She said the woman told her she had to get to a funeral. Did she describe her? Late 50s? Dark hair? About 5'6". She had all the proper identification. Driver's, license, social security card, all in your name? Fake IDs? Consuelo had fake identification with my information. How is that possible? I whispered. It's easier than you'd think, especially if someone has access to your personal documents. Birth certificate, social security card, utility bills for proof of address. He paused. Has anyone had access to those things? I thought of my office, the open drawers, the missing files. Yes, I said. Mr. Hendricks nodded like he'd expected that answer. The good news is, the insurance company flagged it for review before processing. Something about the signature didn't match their records. They're holding everything until you come in personally. What if I hadn't called you? What if I'd just accepted that Consuelo was helping? Then, in about 2 weeks, that policy would have been changed. And the moment you passed away with her, that's next year or in 30 years, half that money goes to Consuelo automatically. You wouldn't be able to change it back without her consent. It was brilliant, in a terrible way. Not stealing the money now. Stealing it later? When I'd be dead and unable to fight back? There's something else, Mr. Hendricks said. He pulled out a thin stack of papers. These are property tax records for your home. Did you know there was an attempt to add Consuelo's name to the deed? My stomach dropped. What? It was filed with the county recorder's office 3 days ago. Another notarized document with your signature authorizing the change. It's currently under review, but if it goes through, she becomes a co-owner of your house. I couldn't speak. My house, the house Robert and I bought in 1989, where we raised our son, where every room held memories I couldn't bear to lose. Can they do that? I finally asked. Not legally, not without your genuine consent, but the process is bureaucratic. If no one objects, these things sometimes slip through. I'm objecting. Good. I'll file the paperwork today. But, Mrs. Navarro, you need to understand what we're looking at here isn't just a few forged signatures. This is systematic fraud, identity theft, attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. This is serious. Vulnerable adult. There was that phrase again, but this time it wasn't an insult. It was a legal term, one that carried weight. What do? I asked. First, you sign an affidavit stating that none of these signatures are yours. Then we file a formal complaint with the police. Then we notify every institution where fraud was attempted at the bank, Social Security, the insurance company, the county recorder. We lock everything down. And Consuelo? If the police find sufficient evidence, they'll handle it. But that's not your job. Your job is to protect yourself and honor what Robert wanted for you. I picked up the pen he offered. My hand was steady. I signed the affidavit, my real signature, the one that belonged to me. As I was leaving, Mr. Hendricks handed me a sealed envelope. Robert left this for you. He said to give it to you if any of this ever came to light. I took it with shaking hands, drove back to my car, sat in the parking lot and opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. Robert's messy scroll. Pilar, rereading this, it means I was right. I'm sorry. I hoped I was wrong. But I couldn't take that chance. Fight back. You're stronger than you think. I love you. I sat there, holding my dead husband's final words, and I cried. Not from grief this time. From relief, from anger, from love. He'd known, and he'd tried to save me. Now it was my turn to finish what he started. I got home at 3 p.m. Consuelo's car was in my driveway. She was sitting on my front porch, arms crossed, face tight with anger. When she saw me pull in, she stood. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "I've been calling you for 2 days." I walked past her and unlocked my door. She followed me inside without being invited. "Pilar, we need to talk. You're being manipulated by that lawyer. He doesn't care about you. He just wants his fee." I set my purse on the table, turned to face her. "Get out!" She blinked. "What? Get out of my house!" "Pilar, listen to me." "No, you listen." My voice was steady, calm. "I know what you did. The bank, the Social Security office, the insurance company, the deed to my house. I know everything." Her face went pale, then red. "I have no idea what you're talking about. You forged my signature multiple times. You used my phone to call the bank. You tried to steal $340,000 from Robert's life insurance. You tried to put your name on my house. That's insane. Why would I? Because you thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I was too old, too confused, too grief-stricken to pay attention. That's what you kept telling everyone, wasn't it? That I wasn't thinking clearly?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping. "You're not thinking clearly. That lawyer is putting ideas in your head. You're vulnerable right now, Pilar. At your age, it's easy for people to take advantage. Stop." I held up my hand. "Stop using my age like it's a weapon. I'm 60. I'm not senile. I'm not confused. And I'm not stupid. I never said you were stupid, you just acted like it. Every single day since Robert died." I pulled out my phone and played the bank recording. Her voice filled my kitchen, pretending to be me, using my information, trying to add herself to my account. Her mouth opened, closed. That's not I with trying to help. Help? By stealing from me. I wasn't stealing. I was organizing. You needed someone to handle things properly. You were a mess, Pilar. You couldn't even remember what you signed, because I didn't sign anything. My voice rose. You signed my name? At the funeral home, at the Social Security office, at a notary's office downtown while I was burying my husband. She was silent for a long moment. Then her expression changed, hardened. "You think you're so smart," she said quietly, "but you have no idea what you're doing. If you push this, if you involve the police, you're going to tear this family apart. Is that what you want? To destroy Robert's memory over some paperwork? Robert knew exactly who you were. That's why he wrote you out of his will. That's why he added a protection clause. He saw this coming." Her face twisted. "Of course he did. He always thought he was better than everyone. Better than me. Just like you do. This isn't about better. It's about right and wrong." She laughed, a bitter, angry sound. "Right and wrong. You really think that matters? You're alone, Pilar. Your son lives 3 states away. You have no family here except me. If you do this, you'll have nobody. I'd rather have nobody than have you." The words hung in the air between us. She grabbed her purse. "Fine. You want to handle everything yourself? Go ahead. But when you can't figure out the mortgage payment or the insurance bills or the taxes, don't call me. When you're sitting here alone wondering why nobody visits, remember this conversation." She walked to the door, stopped, turned back. You're making a huge mistake, and I'm not going to be here to fix it when you realize that. Good, I said. She slammed the door so hard the picture frames rattled. I stood in my kitchen, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. But I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I walked to the window and watched her car peel out of my driveway. Then I called Mr. Hendricks. She knows, I said when he answered. She was here. She threatened me. Did she admit to anything? Not directly, but she didn't deny it either. She just kept saying I was confused and being manipulated. Did she threaten you physically? No, just said I'd regret this, that I'd be alone, that the family would fall apart. He was quiet for a moment. That's a common tactic. Emotional manipulation. Making you feel like you're the problem. Are you safe? Yes. She left. Good. I'm filing the police report today. They'll want to speak with you. Probably tomorrow or the next day. Can you do that? Yes. Pilar, listen to me. What you did today standing up to her, that took courage. Don't let her make you doubt yourself. After we hung up, I walked through my house. Really looked at it. Every room Robert and I had built a life in. The kitchen where we cooked together. The living room where we watched movies. The bedroom where he died. This was mine. Not Consuelo's mine. I went to Robert's office and opened the safe we kept hidden behind a bookshelf. Inside were our passports, birth certificates, the deed to the house, insurance papers. I pulled everything out. Took pictures of every document. Locked them in my car. I wasn't taking chances. That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. Every car that passed felt like it might be her coming back. But morning came. And with it, a call from a Detective Morrison with the county sheriff's office. Mrs. Navarro, I'd like to meet with you to discuss your fraud complaint. Would this afternoon work? Yes, I said. It would. This was really happening. No turning back now. And I was ready. Detective Morrison arrived at 2 o'clock sharp. Mid-40s, no-nonsense demeanor, carrying a leather portfolio that looked well used. Mrs. Navarro, thank you for meeting with me. I've reviewed the complaint filed by your attorney. I need to ask you some questions and collect any evidence you have. I'd spent the morning organizing everything. The torn notary form. The Social Security letter. Screenshots of Consuelo's texts. The bank recording. Photos of the insurance documents. Robert's note. All of it laid out on my dining room table like pieces of a puzzle. Detective Morrison sat down and started taking notes. Walk me through the timeline, he said. Start with the funeral. I told him everything. How Consuelo had taken the folder. How I'd found papers out of place. How the signatures appeared on documents I'd never seen. How she'd used my phone, my information, my grief. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he picked up the torn notary form. You found this in the trash? Yes. The day after the funeral? And you're certain you didn't sign this? I was at the funeral home all morning. There are witnesses. Photos. I can prove I wasn't at any notary's office. He nodded and pulled out a printed document. I contacted the notary listed on this form, Margaret Chun. She confirmed she notarized a document for someone claiming to be Pilar Navarro on the morning of October 15th at 9:47 a.m. I wasn't there. I know Ms. Chun provided a description of the woman who came in. Late 50s, dark hair, about 5'6". She also mentioned the woman seemed nervous and kept checking her watch. Said she had to get to a funeral. My chest tightened. That's Consuelo. Ms. Chun also has security footage from her office. I've requested a copy. If the person in that footage isn't you, that's evidence of identity fraud. Security footage? Actual proof. There's more, he said. He pulled out another paper. I spoke with First National Bank. They confirmed an unauthorized attempt to add a secondary user to your account. The call originated from your home landline on October 16th at 11:23 a.m. Were you home at that time? I thought back. October 16th. 2 days after the funeral, I was at my neighbor's house. She brought me lunch. I was there from about 10:30 until 1. Can she verify that? Yes. He made a note. The bank also mentioned they flagged the voice on the recording because it didn't match their voice print for you. That's why they put the hold on your account. Can I get a copy of that recording? The bank's already provided it to me. It's part of the evidence file now. He paused. Mrs. Navarro, I need to ask, do you have any security cameras at your home? No, just a Ring doorbell. Does it have cloud storage? I'd set it up when Robert got sick, in case I needed to see who came to the door when I couldn't answer it. Yes. It saves clips for 60 days. I need access to that footage, particularly the days surrounding the funeral. I pulled up the app on my phone, started scrolling through saved clips. Most were delivery drivers, neighbors, the mail carrier. Then I saw it. October 15th, 9:15 a.m. Consuelo entering my house. Alone. I was at the funeral home. The service didn't start until 11. She had keys. She'd said she was going to check on the flowers or something. I hadn't thought twice about it. There, I said, handing him my phone. That's her. He watched the clip. What time was the funeral? The service started at 11. But people arrived around 10:30, and this shows her entering your home at 9:15. Alone. He looked up. Did she have your permission to be here? She had a key, but I didn't tell her to come that morning. I thought she was at the funeral home. He forwarded the clip to himself. This places her in your home with access to your personal documents at the exact time someone was getting those documents notarized across town. How is that possible? She can't be in 2 places at once. She can't. But someone working with her could be. Or he paused. Mrs. Navarro, do you know if your sister-in-law has any daughters? Sisters? Female relatives who might resemble you? I thought about it. She has a daughter, Elena. She's 54. We look similar enough. Same build, same hair color. Does Elena live locally? About 40 minutes away? In Lakewood? He wrote that down. I'll need to follow up on that. If 2 people were involved in this fraud, that changes the scope of the investigation. The thought made me sick. Consuelo and Elena, working together, planning this. Detective Morrison pulled out more papers. I also contacted the Social Security Administration. They're treating the beneficiary change request as suspected fraud. They've frozen any changes to your account until this is resolved. What about the insurance company? Midwest Life has officially rejected the beneficiary change. They've flagged your account for in-person verification only. No changes can be made without you appearing at their main office with 2 forms of ID and a witness. Relief flooded through me. So the money is safe, for now? But Mrs. Navarro, I need you to understand something. What we're looking at here isn't just 1 or 2 forged signatures. This was coordinated. Multiple locations, multiple documents, all within a tight time frame. Someone planned this carefully. How long until you can arrest her? He leaned back. That depends on the evidence. We need the security footage from the notary. We need to verify the timeline. We need to prove intent. Financial exploitation cases can be complex, especially when family is involved. How long? I asked again. A few weeks. Maybe a month. I'm moving as fast as I can, but I have to do this right. If I move too soon without enough evidence, a defense attorney could tear it apart. A month. Consuelo would be walking around free for another month, knowing I'd reported her, knowing she might get arrested. Is she dangerous? I asked quietly. Do I need to be worried? Has she ever been violent? No. Just... manipulative. I'll request a protection order if you'd like. It would legally prohibit her from contacting you or coming to your property. Do that, I said. Please. He packed up his notes. I'll be in touch within the week. In the meantime, don't engage with her. Don't answer her calls. Don't meet with her. If she shows up at your house, call 911 immediately. After he left, I sat at my dining room table surrounded by evidence of my sister-in-law's betrayal. The house felt too quiet, too empty. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel helpless. I felt like I was finally fighting back, and I was winning. 3 weeks later, Mr. Hendricks called with news. The insurance company has officially restored you as the sole beneficiary. All attempted changes have been voided. They've also implemented a 2-step verification process for any future modifications. I was standing in my kitchen making coffee when he called. I had to sit down. It's done, I asked. The money is safe. It's safe. And there's more. The county recorder rejected the deed modification. Your house remains solely in your name. They've also flagged your property for additional security measures. No changes can be made without in-person verification and notarized consent. I closed my eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Detective Morrison wants to speak with you. He has updates on the case. An hour later, my phone rang. Detective Morrison's number. Mrs. Navarro, we've made progress. The security footage from the notary's office confirms the woman who appeared wasn't you. We've identified her as Elena Rivera Consuelo's daughter. She used fake identification with your information. Elena, I'd been right. We've also traced phone records. Multiple calls were made from your landline to various financial institutions during times when you can prove you weren't home. Consuelo used her key to access your house and make those calls. What happens now? I'm issuing arrest warrants for both Consuelo and Elena Rivera. Charges include identity theft, fraud, forgery, and attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. We're coordinating with the prosecutor's office. Arrest warrants? Real consequences. When? I asked. Within 48 hours? I wanted to inform you first, so you're not caught off guard when it happens. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt relief. Part of me felt something darker. Not quite satisfaction. More like justice slowly taking shape. Mrs. Navarro, I need to prepare you for something. When people get arrested for crimes like this, they often try to contact their victims. They'll apologize, make excuses, ask for the charges to be dropped. Don't engage. Anything she says could be used to manipulate you. I won't. I don't want you to miss what happens next. Subscribe so you can find stories like this again. 2 days later, Consuelo called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Pilar, please. We need to talk before you make this worse. I know you're upset, but this is all a misunderstanding. If you just listen to me, we can fix this. Don't let them arrest me over paperwork. Please. I'm begging you. Her voice cracked, almost convincing. Almost. I deleted it. Then Elena called. I didn't answer that either. She texted instead. My mom didn't do anything wrong. She was trying to help you. You're confused, and that lawyer is using you. Please don't do this to our family. There it was again. Confused. That word they kept using like a shield. I blocked her number. That afternoon, Detective Morrison called again. Both suspects are in custody. Consuelo Rivera was arrested at her home at 9:15 this morning. Elena Rivera was arrested at her workplace around 11. They've been booked and will appear before a judge tomorrow for arraignment. What does that mean? I asked. The judge will formally read the charges and set bail. Given the nature of the crimes and the evidence, I expect bail to be set fairly high. But there's a chance they'll be released, pending trial. They could get out. Possibly. But the protection order is still in effect. They can't contact you. They can't come near your property. If they violate that, they go straight back to jail. The next day, Mr. Hendricks called with an update. Bail was set at $50,000 each. Consuelo posted bond. Elena's still in custody. She couldn't make bail? My stomach sank. She's out? Yes, but she's restricted. GPS monitoring? No contact order? Travel limitations? If she violates any condition, the bond is revoked and she's arrested again. She knows that. I walked to my window and looked out at my quiet street. Somewhere out there, Consuelo was free, angry, desperate. "I need you to be careful," Mr. Hendricks said. "Lock your doors. Don't go anywhere alone if you can help it. And call me or the police if anything feels wrong." I changed my locks that afternoon, added a second deadbolt, updated the Ring doorbell to send alerts for any motion near my front door. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt like her. Every shadow looked like someone standing in my yard. But nothing happened. Days passed, then a week, then two. Silence. Then one morning, I got a certified letter from Consuelo's attorney. Inside was a plea, a formal offer to settle. If I agreed to drop the charges, Consuelo would pay restitution for any inconvenience caused and agree to stay away from me permanently. Restitution. Like this was a billing error. Like she'd accidentally tried to steal my life. I called Mr. Hendricks. "Do people usually accept these?" I asked. "Sometimes, if they want to avoid a trial, if they're scared of family fallout, if they think it's easier to just make it go away." "What do you think I should do?" He was quiet for a moment. "I think you should ask yourself what Robert would want. What justice looks like to you. Not what's easiest, what's right." I thought about the funeral, about Consuelo's hand on my shoulder, about her sweet voice saying she'd handle everything, about every time she called me confused, about the forged signatures, about the stolen papers, about the woman she sent to pretend to be me. I thought about Robert's note. "Fight back. You're stronger than you think." "I'm not dropping the charges," I said. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." 3 days later, Consuelo's attorney called Mr. Hendricks again. Another offer. Higher restitution. A public apology. Anything to make this go away? The answer was still no. Because this wasn't about money anymore. It was about drawing a line. About saying that grief doesn't make you weak. That age doesn't make you a target. That being kind doesn't mean you have to accept being used. I kept the receipts. I stayed quiet. Until I didn't. And now everyone would know exactly who Consuelo Rivera was. The trial was set for early December. 6 weeks after the arrests, Consuelo showed up to the courthouse in a navy dress and pearl earrings. Hair perfect, makeup subtle. She looked like someone's respectable aunt. Not like someone who'd tried to steal everything from a grieving widow. I sat on the opposite side of the courtroom with Mr. Hendricks. My son flew in from Colorado. He sat beside me, his hand on my shoulder, and I felt less alone than I had in months. The prosecutor presented the evidence. The forged signatures. The timeline that proved I was at the funeral while someone was impersonating me. The Ring camera footage showing Consuelo entering my home. The bank recordings. The notary's testimony identifying Elena as the woman who'd used my identification. It was all there. Undeniable. Clear. Consuelo's attorney tried to argue it was a misunderstanding. That she was only trying to help. That her client had no criminal intent. That this was a family matter blown out of proportion. The prosecutor showed the jury the fake IDs, the multiple institutions contacted, the systematic pattern, the dollar amounts involved. This wasn't help, he said. This was calculated theft, disguised as concern. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Consuelo's face went white. Elena, sitting beside her attorney, started crying. I felt nothing except a strange sense of finality, like a door closing on something that should have ended weeks ago. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. When that day came, I was asked if I wanted to speak, to give a victim impact statement. I almost said no. What was there to say that hadn't already been said? But Mr. Hendricks encouraged me. So did my son. I stood at the podium, looked directly at Consuelo. "I trusted you," I said. My voice was steady, calm. "When Robert died, I was lost. And you saw that loss as an opportunity. You used my grief, You used my age. You told everyone I was confused, so they'd believe you instead of me. Consuelo looked down. You made me doubt myself. You made me feel small. But you were wrong about me. I'm not confused. I'm not helpless. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. I sat down. My hands weren't shaking. My voice hadn't broken. The judge sentenced Consuelo to 18 months in prison and 5 years probation. Restitution of all attorney fees and court costs. A permanent no-contact order. Elena got 12 months and 3 years probation. They were let out in handcuffs. Consuelo didn't look at me. But Elena did. Her face was full of anger. Like I'd done something wrong by reporting them. I watched them go. And I felt something I hadn't felt since Robert died. Peace. After the sentencing, Mr. Hendricks walked me to my car. How do you feel? He asked. Tired, I said. But good. Like I can finally breathe again. Robert would be proud of you. I nodded. I thought he would be too. That night, I went home to my quiet house. The locks were changed. The papers were organized. The accounts were secured. Everything Consuelo had tried to take was still mine. I made dinner, just for myself. Sat at the table Robert and I had eaten at for 37 years. And I didn't cry. I missed him. I'd always miss him. But I wasn't drowning in that grief anymore. I'd survived it. I'd survived her. The next morning, I went to the bank. Signed new signature cards. Updated my beneficiaries with witnesses present. Did everything properly. Legally. The way it should have been done from the start. The manager, the same one who'd questioned me weeks ago, apologized. We should have listened to you sooner, he said. We made assumptions based on age. That was wrong. Yes, I said. It was. I didn't sugarcoat it. Didn't make it easier for him. He needed to hear it. A week later, I got a letter from the Social Security Administration. All changes had been reversed. My benefits were restored. The attempted fraud was permanently noted on my file so nothing like that could happen again. I framed Robert's note. The one he'd left with Mr. Hendricks. Fight back. You're stronger than you think. I hung it in my office. Next to our wedding photo. My son called every few days. Asked if I needed anything. Offered to visit more often. I'm okay, I told him. And I meant it. I started going to a grief support group at the community center. Met other widows. Other people rebuilding their lives after loss. We'd sit in a circle and talk about the small victories. The days that didn't hurt quite as much. The moments when we remembered to laugh. One woman told me she admired what I'd done. Standing up to family. Fighting back. I don't know if I could do that, she said. You could, I told her. If you had to. Because that's what I'd learned. You don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. Months passed. Winter turned to spring. The house stopped feeling so empty. I started sleeping through the night again. And one morning, I woke up and realized I'd gone a whole day without thinking about Consuelo. Without checking over my shoulder. Without feeling afraid. That's when I knew I'd really won. Not because she was in prison. Not because the money was safe. But because she no longer had any power over me. I'd taken back my life, my dignity, my voice. Robert had tried to protect me even after he was gone. But in the end, I'd protected myself. And I'd learned something important. Something I wished I'd known sooner. Grief doesn't make you weak. Age doesn't make you a target. And being kind doesn't mean you have to let people hurt you. I kept the receipts. I stayed quiet. Until I didn't. And when I finally spoke, everyone listened. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever lived through something like this,